Hello, hello. My name is April Malone with Yes, I Work From Home, and this is the podcast. Today I have Sarah Hudson back again. I think you might be my first, I don't know, return interview. Thank you for coming, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be the first to repeat.
I think that you were episode 46, and we talked about you worked for a company on the internal HR side. So you were helping like the employees of your own company with their HR, I don't know, benefits and all those things. Do you want to recap what you were doing and then what's happened since we talked in July?
Yeah. So for the past 10 years or so, I'd been working for a relatively large organization, about 10,000 employees in the United States, in Canada. And I was helping them through leave of absence situations, workplace accommodations. So basically, when you need time off for either like a disability or a personal matter, kind of working through those situations. And when there was a disability in place, figuring out how we could support somebody and minimizing their time away from work and therefore maximizing their pay, which is generally mutually beneficial, right, to the employer and to the employee. And throughout the last year or so, I began to feel that I was outgrowing that role a little bit. I just been doing it for so long. I was ready for a change, but I didn't really know what I wanted. And so I started just kind of getting on LinkedIn for the very first time, creating a profile and really appreciating what their job search algorithm can do. And so I applied for other sorts of leave of absence jobs, but I really wanted something different. I explored well-being management roles. I explored even just like the other side of what I was doing. So with some vendor organizations that would have worked with my counterpart, like to jump on the other side of things for a while. But I really wasn't anxious to leave HR either. So I also was applying for operations type of jobs. And what's funny is if someone had asked me my ideal, and people did ask, my ideal state being with such a large organization was that I really wanted to move to a small, perhaps local company where I could work maybe 1 or 2 days a
I'm
week in
laughing
the
because I
office.
know where.
I know, right? Yeah, trust me, listeners, there's a punchline here. I thought, if I could go in once a week or even once every other week, have some kind of rapport, because my closest coworker at the time was in Chicago and I'm in Houston. And so I didn't have anybody that I could like sit down and, have happy hour, talk shop, those kinds of things. So I thought that would really be ideal. But what I quickly found was that all of the smaller companies that were local wanted you on site, 3 to 5 days a week, or the pay was not in line with what I was looking for. Like I was making, very low 6 figures, like barely 6 figures at the time. And I wasn't certainly prepared to take a pay cut, but I was so ready for a change. I would happily have made a lateral move for something that was just different experience, that could take a career in a different direction. So I knew very well there were plenty of virtual opportunities out there. So I wasn't going to settle for something when my current gig was good. I mean, I was ready to move on, but I was by no means miserable or underappreciated or undervalued or anything like that. So I went from an interview with a law firm in Houston of about, I think, 700 people, which would have been a great fit. The money was decent. And at the same time, someone on LinkedIn just shared, friend of a friend of a friend, a job opening on the benefits operations team at Google. And that's the job I got. So instead.
So no more small local company.
Yeah. I'm now working for a global organization with 170,000 employees. So that's fun. I mean, the HR team at Google is bigger than the entire organization that I interviewed for.
Oh my gosh. So you, instead of going 10 times smaller, you went 10 times bigger.
Precisely. Literally. Yes. That's been interesting. And I'll say that it's really intimidating, I think, to go work for the Facebook, Apple, Googles of the world, because like it's such a popular name and you think, oh, probably like just everyone's got everything together. And I'm going to be like, we have a phrase here in Texas, a country came to town. Like, what could I really be offering here? And I'm not completely useless with technology, but I'm certainly not what I would call a tech savvy person, which is, like obviously in HR, I don't need to be that, but still you go to Google and you've never even touched a Google Suite product before. And it's like, well, are you sure you want me here? And what's funny is when I got there, I realized like with the transformation that Google's HR team is undergoing with the rapid growth of their employee population, my experience is actually exactly what they need.
Really?
And yeah, that was nice. I mean, my ego was already a little bit insane because I had like bagged this job at Google, making double what I was making
Awesome.
at
Good
my
for
last
you.
organization on top of that, for what I feel like is a very similar effort of work. Again, I feel like the role is pretty much a lateral from what I was doing, but it's on the operation side and not the program owner side. So I'm getting to do something different. I'm getting paid much better for it. And I still get to work from home full time, which has been interesting because not everybody at Google is working virtually. We definitely are having a lot of people being asked to work that hybrid schedule, to the extent that they're able. People have to apply to continue to work from home, but I was hired to work 100% remote.
So you're not expected to go. Where do they have locations?
So the main office is what they call the Mountain View office in the San Francisco Bay Area. I think there's close to 80,000 employees in that Bay Area.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there's like 3 or 4 campuses there that all have tons of people. But while there's a very small office in Houston, I don't know how small, but the main campus in Texas is in Austin. And for those of you unfamiliar with Texas geography, that's only about 2.5 to 3 hours away. And I say only because again, when you're from Texas, like anything under 8 hours is considered like not a big deal and drivable.
Right.
So I'm excited because I think, once I settle in a little bit more, because I just took the job March 1st. So like we're at May 1st next week. So I'm still very, very new. Once I'm settled in a little bit more, I would love to get over to Austin, maybe just snag a hotel room for the night, have happy hour with people and hang out in person in the office. I mean, the Google offices are everything you read about like on the internet. There's all this fun stuff and the food and like there's a slide or something at some of them. I haven't gotten there yet.
A slide?
I hear there's a slide. And the HR in me is like, all I can think about is the workers' comp injuries that must come out of that slide.
Nice.
I don't think that's a thing, but that's where my mind goes because that's what I used to do for a living. But anyway, it's been quite the jump.
How long did the transition take? Like from the time that you started hunting and interviewing, and then you interviewed with Google, how long did it take from the interview? Because I know sometimes it's like a quick turnaround and you give 2 weeks notice and you're out. And other times it's long and drawn out, lots of waiting.
No, it was pretty quick. So I applied for the Google job late December. And I had 3, they have a very, very formal, very standard behavioral interview process. So 3 interviews. And so those interviews happened like the first 2 weeks of January. And I had offer in hand before the end of January.
Okay. So 5 weeks from application.
Yeah, 5 weeks is fair.
Was it right after Christmas or like in those last 2 weeks of December?
Yeah, it was within that time period. I can't quite remember if I'd applied before or after Christmas, but it was definitely the latter part. I mean, it moved very quickly.
Wow. So the fact that they even reached out to you right away and offered an interview was great. And then boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
When I was even getting internal jobs when I worked for Mayo Clinic, I think sometimes it would take 2 to 3 months.
Oh yeah.
To go from the interview to actually switching.
Because I did apply for some jobs internally at my other organization. I mean, like I said, after 15 years, I was not eager to leave.
Yeah.
But yeah, even internally, I mean, from application, it would take a week or 2 to, get the initial interview and then set up. And, I think a lot of companies move slower in many regards, especially internally. I mean, especially right now, those poor recruiters. I love HR and I can't imagine doing anything else, but I am quite relieved not to be a recruiter in this day and age. It's already hard work. It's emotional work. And especially right now, it's just absolutely bananas.
So for those of us who don't currently work at HR and might not know all of the terminology, could you kind of break down a little bit for us what you're talking about with like inward facing job versus outward facing? is outward facing the recruiting and the inward facing, like the managing of the, you explain it, please.
Yeah. So what I meant was, like in my last role, for example, again, I'm managing a leave of absence program. So I have a third party vendor who handles our short-term disability. I had a third party vendor who worked our EAP. So a lot of people have an employee assistance program where they work. It's like a largely mental health benefit, but they do other things too. Yeah. And then I might have another vendor for like a caregiver benefit. And so when I say I went like the outward facing, I applied for jobs at the vendors that supported my current role to kind of be on the other side of it.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So that would have been an HR role, right? That would have been more of a like a product management role, or like not sales, because I didn't want to sell, but like an account manager kind of. And I had a few interviews there. I mean, I certainly wasn't the best fit, so it wasn't a shocker that I wasn't selected for those. Mm-hmm. But it was very interesting to interview for a few different jobs, because it really helped me identify like, okay, like if I don't feel confident coming out of the interview, then that's probably not the job for me, you know?
Okay.
So I was glad to like come full circle and end up right back in, the HR operations.
But a good learning and growing experience, right?
Totally. Because when you talk about timeline, it was 16 months. I decided last August, this is it. I renewed my resume. I had like an interview with Apple right out of the gate. They didn't select me, which kind of hurt my feelings because I was perfectly qualified, but that's okay. And and you fast forward 16 months to that application I put in with Google the following December.
Okay.
Because apparently when you want to make six figures and you want to work from home and you know exactly the kind of job you want to do, it takes a while, first world problems, because people talk a lot about the Great Resignation and, jobs are a dime a dozen, but the reality is good jobs, right, for people with a lot of experience are just as hard to get as they ever were. The jobs that are easier to come by right now are the jobs where, they're more entry level. They're maybe jobs where the environment is not as ideal, like, public facing jobs, the kind of stuff that most people don't probably plan to do for their whole life. They're usually stepping stone jobs. And yes, there are people that do retail their whole life and absolutely love it. There are people that start as a fry cook at McDonald's and work their way up to regional management. Absolutely. But I have to think those are the exception, right?
And now we have probably literally millions of people who got a taste of working from home and then were forced to go back into the office, who are vying for all of those competitive, six-figure and, even comparable jobs.
Yes.
Definitely a different kind of market.
Definitely. Absolutely. And then you think about, I don't want to take us on a tangent, all the people that decided not to go back to work, particularly mothers, but not just mothers. I do know actually several dads who have taken up the stay-at-home parent mantle. In all this. So not only are you competing for talent, but also, sometimes companies are competing, for people, because if you have a unique skill set, if you're in a bit of a niche market, it's been hard for people to find jobs, but it's been sometimes hard for employers to find qualified candidates that could jump in and hit the ground running. Like, you don't always have time, to bring somebody in from the bottom and get them up to speed. Like the job I'm in, they needed somebody who could hit the ground running, and it just so happened, here I am. Lucky them.
Are you still in a training period right now, or are you already? Okay, go ahead.
Yes, it would be fair to say I'm still onboarding. I am on two big, exciting projects. I can't give the detail of them, but I am excited. Within benefits, there's always new vendors being considered, new processes being considered, and whether it's, again, leveraging an external client relationship, again, with a vendor, or figuring out how you're going to better serve your employees. People think HR and they kind of, I think, largely think recruiting and firing people, right? And there's so much more, right, than that. So my job specifically, and my whole team and the extended teams I work with, we are laser focused on the employee experience. And when you need something as an employee, can you find it? Can you find it quickly? And do you trust the information that you're finding? And are you getting it in a method that works for you and a timeline that works for you? So a lot of what I do is really around, are you coming to work every day and your benefits aren't a distraction? Are they an enhancement? Are you getting what you need so that you can focus on your day job or your family?
Yeah.
and not navigating your benefits. And so that's what my job is all about. So I'm excited to really dive in. I mean, right now, again, still meeting a lot of people, still learning a lot about the organization and like what these projects are going to be all about. So I think in about a month from now, I'm going to be kind of like, yeah, I'm fully in now. I'm fully in now. But as of today, I'm still enjoying a bit of downtime during the day, which is exciting.
So it sounds like employee handbook stuff. Handbook, maybe
Sometimes,
not paper, but
yeah,
will you be talking with employees at all,
I will
or is it
not.
going to be completely the only team?
Yeah, I am behind the scenes in that regard. So I'm kind of a bridge between the program owners that work more strategic projects and I'll call it on the ground team that actually talks to employees face to face. Well, not face to face, right? Email to email.
Yes.
So I support that team and I make sure they have everything they need so that when an employee reaches out and says, this is what I need, they know how to answer. And if they don't know how to answer it, they at least know who to ask. And then vice versa, they can bring things to me saying, hey, we're getting more and more questions about this, or I'm getting more and more questions that I'm not sure how to answer. Maybe we should pause and like review, like, is the policy online not clear? Is the handbook not clear? Or is it clear to us and maybe there's too many nuances? And, under what circumstances, could we maybe get some canned responses together on this? And what circumstances do we want to escalate it perhaps and review it on a case by case basis? So it's, you want to take care of people, but at the same time, you can't create either a unique experience for every single employee. So you have to figure out what you can scale, what works for the masses, and then figuring out where maybe you should be looking at a bit of an exception to handle a situation that your policy couldn't have anticipated or your company couldn't have anticipated to work through it the right way.
I want to get some tips and tricks about job changes
Yeah.
from you, because you are HR. I know that you're not a recruiter. Do you have experience with the whole hiring side, or like the resumes or the interviews? Have you been in that, or do you feel like you
Not
did it
on the other
well?
side. Yeah, my
Yeah.
experience is just as a job searcher, but let me tell you, I've learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Anything new in 2022?
well, yeah, I mean, I hadn't searched for a new job really since 2006.
Oh, wow. Yep.
I made a couple of internal moves, but they were kind of things that fell into my lap and not, super formal searches. So I would say a few things. So first, I would say searching for a job is a part-time job. So you have to like make a decision to be serious about it if you are serious about it. I mean, if you're just one of those people that likes to poke around every 6 months and just really casually check, that's fine. But if like myself, you are done where you are, and certainly, if you're already unemployed, that you have the time, but especially if you are still working full time, you have to make time for it and set aside time for it and like treat it like a meeting, a block, So what I would do, what worked for me, right? Because again, I love the LinkedIn situation, the algorithm. Like I did not really use anything else. I
Really?
poked around on ZipRecruiter. I poked around on flexjobs.com as well, because they were good about pointing out what was, fully virtual, what was hybrid. That was a good site too. But the LinkedIn algorithm just cannot be beat for me. So I did pay for a premium for several months to just take advantage of some of those extra perks. But what I would do just downtime during the week, because I didn't want to spend too much time job searching during that. I still had a job to do. And
Yeah.
like, I'm a bit of a rule follower, right? but I certainly spent a few minutes here and there almost every day. I would just like, if I had a little coffee break, if you will, I'd pick up LinkedIn, look through, and I'd kind of save jobs. And then what I would do on like Friday, Saturday night, when I had some downtime, my husband would be hanging out with the kids, I would lock myself in my bedroom, go through those saved jobs, remove the ones that's like, oh, upon second read, that's not really what I want. Or, I'd maybe look up the company and say, no, like that's only a 50-person organization. Like that's not what I want,
Okay.
or at the time, weeding out larger organizations. Like, you know what, now that I think about it, I don't want to work for a national retailer. Like that's not the kind of environment I want to work in, considering the job that I want to do,
Rart,
different things
rart.
like that. And then end up at Google. And then just apply, right? And I mean, there's a few quick apply things. And I have heard very anecdotally people say, oh, well, if they have those quick applies, like those aren't real jobs, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I had several great experiences of some
Really?
of those, like apply now. Again, slightly smaller organizations or slightly less formal organizations, But again, good paying jobs, had a couple of interviews, ended up not being the right fit for them. So I mean, no hard feelings, of course, but I would say don't assume just because there's an apply now that it's kind of not legit.
I think the thing that I learned
sorry.
about the quick apply is more that it just takes the resume that you have already built in LinkedIn and just uses that, and it doesn't really give you the chance to customize it, right?
It depends. Yeah. Some of them you could upload a resume. Some of them you couldn't. And some of them even had several screening questions. So it just, yeah, it really depends. And I think even over the course of a year, I saw that apply now change a lot
Oh,
from
really?
one click to one click, upload your tailored resume even, and then maybe a few screening questions. Do you have X number of years doing this? How many number of years do you have doing that? And so I liked that because it was like the best of both worlds, right? I didn't have to do a lot, but they got, the crux of what they needed from me. So we don't waste each other's time. And I like that. Something else I noticed, and I'm pretty sure this wasn't the case before the pandemic, every single screening call I had, we talked money, every single one.
Really?
And I don't know if that's because of the level that I am or because, the fact that I am applying for, but even the jobs that weren't like super HR, the recruiter would talk a little bit. Some of them brought it up sooner. Some of them brought it up later. I never got off the phone without either giving them a range or them saying, this is the range.
So apparently that's legal in your state, because I know there's some states where it's not legal to ask.
Like, they can't ask what you're currently making.
Okay.
But they can ask, like, is there a salary target you
what
have
you're
in
looking
mind?
for?
Yes. Which again, to me, any recruiter worth their salt is telling you the range. If you're a job searcher, don't feel like you have to give one. You ask for tips. I think my best tips is if you're not really sure what this job pays or what it's worth in the market, it's okay to say, I really need to hear more about the full compensation package and the benefits before I could really give you a number. Can you give me the range, for this job?
That's fair, because if they offer a nice salary, but they don't offer as good of, so for instance, when I left Mayo Clinic, when they offered me a severance package, it wasn't severance, it was separation package.
Yes.
My benefits that I was carrying for 4 of the 5 family members, were a lot less expensive than what my husband's were going to be. So basically, even though my husband was able to, cover benefits for our family, it cost us several $100s.
You basically took a pay cut.
Yes.
Yes. And on the other side of it, like my company I was at Alight, we're not a salary leader. And I was okay with that because I've been working from home way before working from home was cool.
And that
right?
was a benefit to you.
That was the benefit. And they were very transparent. They're like, look, we offer a lot of other benefits, not just health, but like we're not trying to be a market leader for salary. Right. And I was totally fine with that. But I would have undersold myself by 20 to 30%, like even a lateral move asking for my current salary or even bumping it up a little bit. Like I would definitely have not asked for what the job was worth. And I, again, will say every single recruiter that I undersold said, oh, our starting range is above that. So you'll be fine. So, I mean, they were very, and I know not every recruiter is that transparent. I don't have rose colored glasses about it. I know there are companies out there that will undersell you, but I was so pleasantly surprised. I mean, quite shocked that, I'd say, hey, I'm looking to make about 120. And they say, oh, well, this role starts at 135. You're good.
Nice.
And
then
like
you're
I said,
like, wait, I mean, 150.
Yeah, great. But even at Google, they didn't put the salary range for Texas on it. But now that Colorado has the law that you have to put something on the posting, I could see what the role offered in Colorado.
Okay.
So I asked for a little bit less. Because I thought, well, Texas has lower cost of living than Colorado, but they offered me even more than that. Because they want to secure candidates and they want to pay people fairly and they're looking for internal equity and everything like that. And that's not unique to Google by any means. I heard that from a lot of organizations, like, we start everybody off at this, even if you have less experience or more, like this is because I think a lot of people too feel like, well, I personally am worth this. And that's important. You should absolutely know your worth and ask for your worth, but also that role you're applying for or taking has a value to the organization. Right. So if they're like, this role only brings up to $150,000 value, and you're like, hey, I'm looking for a role that makes 175, the fact that they're not offering it to you doesn't mean they think you're worth less, but there's a mix, right, between what the role brings to the organization and what you're bringing to the role as well. So keep that in mind.
Can we go back and talk about LinkedIn for a few minutes?
Yeah.
You said that you noticed the button for the apply now change over the year. You also said you were kind of new to LinkedIn. So was that
Brand
16 months ago you created the profile?
Yeah.
Because we do have your LinkedIn. You gave it to us when you were our last episode. Was that?
I was already job searching at the time.
Did I say you were episode 46? Working
Yes.
from home through the HR lens with Sarah Hudson. So go back and listen to that one too.
Yeah, good tips in there if you're needing a leave or an accommodation during the pandemic. But yeah, I was brand new to LinkedIn at the time.
Can I tell you something that I just happened to notice right now?
Please.
I lost my Apple Watch a couple months ago and it is sitting right there. And I just found it. And I'm so excited I could cry. Oh my goodness.
You just show me, there it is.
Oh my gosh. I am like,
how do you lose something that's actually on your desk, April?
And I swear I've looked around.
Maybe somebody found it and put it on your desk because they didn't know you were looking for it.
In my closet, in my bathroom, in my bedroom. So it would have been one of my family members.
Yeah.
That's very possible, actually.
We'll give them the benefit of the doubt. They were doing you a solid.
No, I actually filed a police report because at one point I thought it was stolen. So here's a funny little thing about, do you happen to have a smartwatch?
I don't.
Okay. So here's the funny thing. You know how you can use like Find My iPhone with Apple products?
Yeah.
Well, apparently when your battery on your watch is so dead that it can't be located, it shows the previous location for 24 hours. And what I didn't know is that then it starts to pretend like its location is the same location as your phone. And so I was like, I can't even describe the stress I was going through because it would say that my watch had pinged like 6 miles from here, but it only happened because I drove through the intersection like the day before.
Yeah.
And so I was like out, like lifting up like road construction cones and like sandbags, trying to see like where could my watch have been, because it was and I had just driven through this, and then it said that it was at my school. And so then I thought maybe one of my students had stolen it, which I didn't want to think. And I always thought I lost it. I never assumed that anyone until it pinged at the school. And then I was like, that changes the story. And then it pinged at my house. And so I thought maybe it was in my car, tore apart my car. I'm not joking. Like I wouldn't let anyone vacuum the car because I also am listening my AirPods right now. Maybe they're just going to magically appear now too.
Maybe they will. Okay. So you have to ask your family, did somebody find, and you have to report back to me.
Yeah.
Whether you report back to your listeners is up to you, but I need to know now. Did somebody find it and put it there? Or did the shoemakers elves find it?
Or it's very possible because I have barely been in my office in the last 4 or 5 months because I've been, working on site. Like here I am hosting my Yes, I Work From Home podcast. But I'm temporarily working in person right now, which
funny.
I think is really, really good for me as far as just being able to like have that taste of, the on-site experience again. Cause it had been, more or less 13 years, since I've had, staff lunches and stuff like that.
Yeah. I do miss the potlucks. I miss the potlucks and being with people a little bit, not enough to go in every day, but in perpetuity, right? Cause your situation is like a defined end period, isn't it?
Yes. It
is. So that's nice. That's nice. That's funny. Okay. So back to LinkedIn, as you said. So like I said, I would do my kind of like favoriting jobs during the week, using the weekend. And I mean, I applied for like 20 jobs every single weekend.
For almost
every single weekend for over a year.
Because we're talking hundreds and hundreds of applications. Because I think people start to get worn out when they're like, I've applied for over 100 jobs.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's not enough.
And I used to think like, that's insane. Like, what are you doing? But, then I became the hypocrite because again, I didn't really know what I wanted to be when I grew up, So I was applying. It's not like I was looking for just one job. Had I been looking for just one kind of job, I'd have been applying for 5 jobs a week, but because I said, well, let me just cast this wide net. Like, let me see what is out there. And I'm applying for 3 or 4 different like categories of jobs. Yeah. And I applied, I'm not gonna lie, I applied for several things that, I wasn't sure I was qualified for that were steps up instead of lateral moves. And it got rejected for pretty much all of those. And again, the ones I did get callbacks for turned out like the salary was just not worth like the extra work, the extra responsibility, because they weren't paying like as much as I'm making now for sure.
So if you're going to change industries or change roles, maybe don't try to do not just a lateral move, but also a bump up.
Yeah,
Like, if
because
you're gonna
ideally,
change internally, it's easier to move laterally or to move up, right?
yes, yes, because I thought, what I'm doing at Alight was so, I won't say silo, but it's a very specific skill set, managing a leave program. So I thought I'm probably going to have to lateral kind of into something else to prove what else I can do, right, in order to have more responsibility, because I would have loved to move up again in my current organization, but the structure was such that, like, I didn't want my boss's job. That wouldn't have been what I wanted to do.
Okay.
I don't think I'd been very good at it. And then, though, like, recruiting wouldn't hire me in a higher level role because I'd never done recruiting. Talent development would have hired me in a higher level role because I've never done that, So
Okay.
I thought, okay, I really need to lateral, prove myself, and move up in a different way.
Do you feel like there's opportunities at Google for
Oh,
advancement?
definitely. 100%. And you know what's so funny? I've already run into several alumni from my last organization here.
Oh,
So, like, small world, I guess, in HR and benefits space, right? That was kind of funny. We didn't work together. We were all there kind of at different times, or they were there like much earlier in my career, but that was just like really funny. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the people I'm talking to at Google right now, and they've been there 3 years and their second or third different kind of job. Like, you can move around a lot. If your skill set's what's needed, they put people where they can be useful, where they have passion. It seems like they do a really good job, or at least try to do a very good job of helping people shake things up, so you don't get stagnant and different things like that. They even have opportunities where you can, like, go do something else for, let's say, 3 to 6 months, work on a special project, and come back to your job, kind of get the break in, so you don't get, hopefully, as burned out, right? You don't get bored. And
but those special projects give you the stepping stones to
yeah,
changes.
exactly. You can kind of test the water, see, hey, do I like working over here? Do I like working over there? So yeah, I'm really excited. I'm so new. I'm not even thinking about my next step yet, obviously, but it's really nice to know it's almost impossible, I think, to find myself in the position I was in when I started job searching recently. Is like, I don't feel like there's anything else for me here. That seems almost impossible to be the case, right? I'd be very happy to retire from Google in 20 years. I turned 40 last month, and I'm like, I'm not trying to job hop at this
I'm
age.
here.
I'm a monogamous worker.
Can you
15 years at my last organization? I'd be very glad to spend 15 or 20 years here and then call it a day.
Yeah, I hear you. It's exhausting, and it's emotional and time consuming. Can you talk a little bit about, I know at the beginning before we recorded, I was like, is there anything that's off limits? And she said, I'm supposed to just keep it to what's in the news. But do you feel like your onboarding experience has been gentle or vigorous?
Yeah.
Or
Oh yeah, definitely gentle. And I don't know, how it compares to others. I know some people hired during the pandemic were brought into things a little sooner just because things happened quickly. But I have had, I will say that, a much gentler onboarding experience than I think anyone could have expected.
Oh, really?
And I mean, anyone, like, just external coming in, like, solid 2 weeks, not even talking about work, just learning about the organization and like the different areas. Like, I didn't even realize like, I don't think I even realized Google owned YouTube. Like, I'm just so out of the loop. Like, casual people probably know that. I didn't. And, just kind of learning about things like that. And then a lot of time just learning about your particular part of the organizations, in HR. What's the structure like? What does everybody do? And then just meeting tons of people, like just scheduling 20-30 minute get to know you calls with all the people you're going to be working with, and figuring out, like, who's also a Harry Potter geek, who's also in Texas, who also has small kids, and finding those little connections.
Mm-hmm.
And what's funny is one of the projects I'm working on, the lead on that project lives in my neighborhood.
What?
What are the chances of that? Like, literally, what are the chances of that?
So you can have coffee.
I can have coffee. Like, half the teams in San Francisco, half the teams in Hudson. You can call it a work meeting. Me and this guy are gonna have a coffee date eventually.
That's awesome.
And he has a kid my kid's age. That's funny.
Oh, fun.
But yeah, it's been very slow going. I mean, I'm definitely at this point where I'm raising my hand to say, are you sure there's not more? I'm ready. Like, and again, there's a couple projects I'm working on. I'm just kind of waiting for them to take off. And I actually am going on vacation next week. So when I come back from vacation, we're going to be.
Did you negotiate that in the interview?
This was already planned. We're going to Disneyland. The kids don't know yet, but they're not here, so I can talk about it.
Fun. How much time do you feel like they spent telling you about your benefits?
But before hire or since onboarding?
Both, because you are going to be making sure that people know how to find their stuff. And is it
Yes.
too much or too little? How
Yes.
was your experience learning about your benefits?
Yeah. So pre-hire, they have like what they call an at a glance, which a lot of companies do. I created the one at my last company. So it's a really solid, big picture of what you get. You get this much vacation, and here's the kinds of health benefits we offer. Didn't have like pricing and all that, because it depends on where you live. But you go in kind of really understanding there's a lot at my disposal, and then during onboarding, it's a little bit more self-serve. Definitely one of the things that we'll be talking about this year is like, how can we do maybe a slightly more robust picture of what's available and how to find it. But, that's, again, every organization has that. I won't say it's a problem, but just how do you navigate? How do you help people find what they're looking for? And so that's always an area where every organization can improve, but the tools are good. How you enroll, it walks you through step by step. The vendors that every company uses, including Google, for walking you through that. They don't let you choose things that you can't have. They make sure that you're like, if you select a dependent on one page and then you don't on another, it's like, hey, did you forget somebody? And
so they're smart.
Because, for
like
example,
they really are following.
Okay. Right. Like my husband has like the stellar dental insurance. So like I selected vision, but not dental. And it was like, hey, are you sure you don't want dental? Because I saw you selected one and not the other. So the tools are really smart.
Okay.
So it's kind of hard to make too much of a mistake, when you're going through that.
Great. Like that
Yeah.
You don't have to necessarily know all of the options, just your options, right?
Right. Exactly. And you can always call the carriers, if you're not sure. But again, some companies have more options than others. So you might need to even look into, well, is Blue Cross better for me? Is Aetna better for me? Whereas Google has one option and you're good. There's a couple plans to choose from still. Whereas at my old organization, you had 5 different carriers to choose from. So it's really, company specific, but Google did a great job of kind of walking through that.
Yeah. When I worked for Mayo Clinic, it was Mayo Clinic 1, Mayo Clinic 2, Mayo Clinic 3.
Similar.
And comprehensive versus basic.
Yeah.
But with my husband's, it's I had never had to compare what you say, carriers before. The different I think it was like, I can't even think of them all. And it's like, you can look at the price points, or you can look at like, do I want to be in this network or that network?
And that's, to me, when people say, how do I choose? I say, how important are your doctors? If you want to keep your current doctor, make sure they're in the network that you're choosing.
Yes.
If you don't care, or it's just not that important, then go by cost. Because at the end of the day, I mean, healthcare is healthcare. It's all less than ideal anyway. So you might as well save your money.
Okay. And what about like, how much time did you give? How much notice did you give to your previous company? And what kind of equipment did you have to give back? And what kind of equipment did you get?
Yeah. So I had a laptop that I returned. I have a monitor here. I actually can't remember if they bought it or I bought it, so I kept it. They didn't ask for it. Who wants to pay to ship back a 10-year-old monitor? Because I've had it a long time. Even if they bought it, it wouldn't be worth it.
It's outdated.
But yeah, all I had was that, in like the keyboard and mouse they issued me 10 years ago, I've long since replaced. So all I had to do was ship my laptop back. Similarly, all Google sent me was a laptop.
Really?
Now, again, I treated myself to a new like wireless keyboard, mouse, and wireless headset last Christmas. If I needed that, I absolutely could have asked for it and they would have provided it. If I needed a new monitor, if this one ever dies, I mean, eventually, well, they will certainly provide me with one, but I didn't need it. And it just didn't seem I didn't see any point in asking for something new when I didn't need it. I was like, I'll just wait until I do.
What about like desk or chair? Do they give any kind of stipend for that sort of thing, or?
No. And I don't know how common that is. Sorry, my computer's dying. So I did quickly plug it in. I don't know how common it is to get those kinds of stipends. I didn't offer one at my last organization. So yeah, I wouldn't. I see a lot of people suggesting that, like in HR groups. Well, can you negotiate that? I mean, they either give it or they don't. That's not something you negotiate. But as someone who's been working from home for 15 years, I don't need any of that anyway.
Yeah.
Like I have a setup that I love. When I bought this house a few years ago, I bought myself a new desk. I bought myself a new chair. Like I don't need any of that. Again, I think if there was something small I needed, like a chair, potentially they would pay for it or allow me to expense it. It's just not something I've asked for. They do pay for my internet, because that's the
Okay.
law in California. So and since most of their employees are California, they just pay. So they just add, that $70 to my paycheck.
Nice. So is it, they help cover your internet? Cause I don't know about you, but my internet costs more than 70.
Yeah, but mine coincidentally is like 75, so it's perfect.
Oh, nice.
The beauty of the low cost of living, right, in the Houston area.
But I wonder how closely connected are ergonomics, like, cause like, I don't know if you have an
Mhm.
ergonomic specialist in your team or if you can have virtual assessments or not, and HR and like workman's comp and all these kinds of things, because
Yeah.
a lot of people get repetitive stress injuries from working at a laptop and even just
Mhm.
working at a decent setup, but incorrectly.
Yeah. I can't remember if there was anything about ergonomics in my onboarding. And the reason I'm having a hard time remembering is that I was heavily into that work as I was leaving Alight. And like my brain can't distinguish between like, was that the old job or the new job where we talked about it?
Yeah.
But what I'll say is this. I mean, it's 2022. Get online, check your setup,
Yeah.
make sure it's good. Like we're all grown-ups here. Like you can do it. There's not a lot your employer is going to offer you, even with a virtual visit, that you can't figure out online. They'll tell you can easily find recommendations for how far away should your computer be for eye strain, how, what's the height, that your keyboard should be
Mhm.
for wrist injuries and things like that. What position should you be sitting in? And also, there are some chairs that are better than others, but most office chairs on the market are, ergonomically sound. You might need to get a back support if you're very short like me, maybe a footrest.
Mhm.
I was actually thinking about just yesterday, maybe getting one of those under desk ellipticals.
Yep.
Because I think it'd be fine. I have ADHD and I'm getting more fidgety. So in my old age, so I wonder if maybe that would be
My very
helpful.
first interview, Ryan Langer is my cousin, and he's, I think, pretty openly ADHD. And he has one of those
Yeah.
specifically.
I just got diagnosed 6 months ago. That's a whole other conversation that we
Yep.
can have.
I hear you. We're working on that too. So I hear you.
Whole other conversation. But yeah, drugs have helped. Not sorry we did that. But yeah, I noticed, I think the second kid kind of broke me. So as I'm navigating that in the new job, figuring
I
out
hear
how to make
you.
myself, Mhm. I could live my life just fine. Then I had a second child and everything just went completely. And my therapist said that's totally common. It made me feel better.
Yeah, I think I started feeling like more anxious after my second kid, and it took me several, like 6, 8 months to really even put my finger on what was
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah. So I started ADHD medication in September, and I actually started anti-anxiety as well. In January, I'm a totally different person. It's
Awesome.
amazing. Amazing.
Before we wrap up, I do like to usually just ask my go-to question. And
Yeah.
I'm actually working on compiling some of the answers that I've received over the last 90 some episodes that we've had.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe your answer has changed. I can't remember if I asked you the last time. But if you had any advice to give someone who's thinking about working from home for the first time or making it a permanent change,
Yeah.
what new advice do you have for
Mhm.
someone in that position?
I don't remember if you asked me that or not, but and therefore I don't remember what I would have said, but watching the pandemic situation go through, and I would just say, respect it. You're still working. Like, does that mean you can do things during the day? Yes. Does it mean you probably need to still be available for core hours? Yes. Like, can you work with multiple children at home? No. Can you work with multiple elderly relatives who need your attention? No. So it's like you need to give it the respect that you would have if you were in the office.
Mhm.
And like I put on a real shirt for you today because I thought we were videoing. It's like, do I work in my
We
pajamas?
are.
Uh-huh.
We are
That's
videoing.
fine. That's fine. But so you don't need to do hair and makeup and some people do. That's what they like to do. But what I mean by respecting it is like, have your dedicated space. Even if you're in a tiny apartment, I understand like not everybody has the luxury I have of an office, but
Mhm.
like just respect your space and don't try to work from your bed all the time. Don't try to work from your couch all the time. Like, do I take a call from the couch every now and again to change up the scenery? Yes, because it's been 15 years and sometimes I need to go somewhere that's not this office. But I see so many people like, yeah, I need to work from home because I have all these kids, or I need to work from home because I have all these responsibilities. That's not how it works.
No.
You're still being paid to do a job. And if you're not doing that well, then your work from home privileges, because it is a privilege, can get revoked and or that could be the impetus for a company to remove it for other people if people are not productive and are not taking it seriously enough.
Right.
So like I would say, respect the privilege of working from home. And there can be days you totally take advantage of it, and days you clean out your closet and you have a long lunch with your mom and things that I did yesterday, literally. And then there are days you're going to be head down, and, it's important to have boundaries. Absolutely. Your family comes first, work to live, don't live to work, all of that. But do the job you're paid to do first and foremost. And working from home is not a substitute for childcare. Is the biggest thing I could say.
Absolutely. If you want a salaried or a full-time position, it's not. Yeah. You have, some people are like, oh, I want to work from home, but they mean I want to work 3 hours a week, for my, just
like if you want to freelance. If you want to, if you're doing something like medical transcription that you literally could do with kids running through the house because you don't have meetings, or you can do it during that time or after they go to bed.
That's what I did for Mayo Clinic. You cannot do it with kids running through the house because you have to hear every single word and you can't mess it up.
Well, that's true too.
So I
just know there are people who will say, well, I work from home. It's like, yeah, but if you own your own business, you're making your own hours. That's a totally different matter. I'm talking about you're working for corporate America in a normal 9-to-5 gig, and their expectations there.
Yes.
And they're very similar to what they would be if you were in the office.
Exactly. You're not going to bring your kids running around the house.
Yeah. If you would bring your kids to the office, then you shouldn't be trying to work while your kids are at home.
That's true. All right. Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts are, I hope I can be your first three-peat one day.
Okay. But you're not going to have you just have to think of a really, really good topic and pitch it to
I know.
me.
We're going to get it. We're going to do it.
But you said you have a friend you're going to recommend, right?
Yes. I sent her your information. I told her to get in touch with you. So hopefully she'll do that soon.
Okay. So we might have two HR specialists, I guess, back to back here.
And she's in a whole different part of HR. So she'll have a whole different story to tell.
Awesome. So good. Well, thank you, Sara. I think we should wrap it up.
All right. Have a great day.
Take care. This has been April Malone with Sara Hudson. And yes, I work from home, and we will see you next time.
Bye.